Thank you for joining us on this episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel the Law Olawale. We are going to be talking about fake news, the effect of fake news in the age of rapid information. My guest today is Ernest Kanjo. He's a journalist with over 20 years experience, a broadcaster, owner of a radio station. He has practiced journalism as a field reporter, copy editor, desk editor, editor in chief, and is also, like I said, the program manager and the CEO of Apex One Radio, an internet radio that is based in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome to the show, Ernest.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. It's my pleasure to be on your platform today. And I must, first of all, begin by congratulating you on the great job you've been doing. Legal Angle started as a joke, but down the road, it's turned out to be a very wonderful platform which has contributed enormously to public discourse. I have watched every edition of it, and I must say you're doing a wonderful job. So thank you so much. I'm all yours today, Emmanuel.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the platform for Apex One Radio, where this program started. It's an honor to have you on the show. And you haven't been in the field for over 20 years. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and so that they can know more about you?
Beautiful. I was born in Cameroon. I went to school there. Decided to study journalism, which has always been my passion from childhood. I remember I started writing articles for the school magazine in my early years of secondary school. I was inspired by a few professionals who had been there long before me, and it was always my dream to be seen on the screens someday talking, to be heard on radio someday, to be read in the papers. So that led me to want to study journalism formally, to arm myself for it. So I went to the University of Boyan, which is the leading Anglo-Saxon university in my country, where I studied journalism and obtained a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication. While I was in school, Emmanuel, it would be important to mention I started practicing journalism. In fact, I used to collaborate with the local branch of the state radio, that is CRTV, where every week I would take part in one of its flagship programs called Sports Special. And I was lucky to have worked during that time with one of Africa's best football commentators, Zakarenko of blessed memory. He was actually my mentor. He showed me the way. Upon graduation from the university, I stayed around the town where my university was found for a couple of months. Then I decided to move over to the capital city in Yaoundé, where I continued collaborating with the state-run radio station. Then a few years later, I got hired by the first privately run radio station in Cameroon called Radio Ren. It was run by a very popular priest in the country, where I worked on the English news desk for 1.5 years. Later on, I moved to yet another privately run radio station, but this time run by an international organization. This one was a specialized radio station that focused on the environment. So it was run by the World Conservation Union. I worked for this radio station for more than a year as well, during which time I traveled the entire Cameroon. I traveled all over the country with projects run by that organization. Uh, Thereafter, I decided to follow up with print journalism. While in school, Emmanuel, I was told that the the best journalist is the one who writes very well. It starts from writing. If you cannot write, you cannot be a good journalist. Broadcasting is the easier way to go. So I decided to sharpen my pen further. That led me to the newsroom of the leading newspaper in the English language in Cameroon, The Herald, where I worked for a couple of months as a field reporter, a desk editor, and I actually did sports and culture for that newspaper. That happened for a couple of months. Then an organization came looking for me to be editor in chief of one of their publications. It was a publication on HIV and AIDS called Among Youth. It was a magazine for young people, sponsored by the Global Fund for the Fight Against Malaria, AIDS, and Tuberculosis. So I worked in this magazine as editor in chief. The mission was to help young people abstain from premarital sex. But we used this magazine to do that. So I was editor for that magazine for 5 years. I think that's when I actually discovered myself, my skills, my talents more. And that is also where I got interested in art and culture journalism, because we use entertainment information to lure young people to stay away from premarital sex. So we would use celebrities, to pass on the message to young people, the anti-HIV/AIDS message to young people. So during this time, I interacted a lot with celebrities, interviewed them, all over the country. And that is where my interest in art and culture journalism grew. And I also had the opportunity of collaborating with the German Cultural Center during this time, through an organization we created, a professional association we created. That is journalists who reported art and culture. So through some collaborative works with the German Cultural Center, I traveled, to Europe and in other parts of Africa, during which time I improved, on my skills. I acquired enormous experience. And I remember in March of 2010, a dozen of African journalists met in Harare, Zimbabwe, including me, and we created the first Pan-African association that brought together art and culture journalists, called African Arts and African Arts Journalist Network, AAJN. Yes. So that is how it happened. And shortly afterwards, I relocated to the United States of America. And this is when I faced my first challenge. And that challenge is not having to practice journalism immediately. When I was coming to the United States, I thought it was going to be easy to integrate, the media landscape in the United States. But when I got here, that wasn't the case. And so there was a blank period. I had to stay off the media for some time, for a stay off broadcasting, as a matter of fact, because I also run an online magazine where I continue to write. But that doesn't expose me more, especially in the United States. So I went for like a year, then came in touch with a Ghanaian friend who had an online radio station, Africa Radio, here in Columbus. He co-opted me, and I volunteered with him for one year. I was very regular. For 1 year, I ran a Wednesday show, which was fantastic. And that kind of inspired me. My dream had always been to run a media organization after having amassed enough experience over the years. So I had Apex One Radio in mind long before I even came to the United States. But I didn't just know how it was going to happen. So in January of 2015, I actually kicked off with the project. And the first thing we had to do, me and my collaborator with whom I've worked for so many years, Maxell, the first thing we had to do was to plant the project, technically plant the project. So Maxell is a systems engineer. In January of that year, he started building up the system. It took us 6 full months of trying everything, sound, and I mean putting the software together, building content. While Maxell was doing the technical part of the work, I was building content, creating shows, creating content, recording some of the shows, trying to bring people on board to build the content together. So it took us 6 months to put all of this in place. Then in June of 2015, we set the ball rolling. So Apex One Radio went on the airwaves. Fortunately, Maxell designed the station in such a way that it runs 24/7. It never goes off the air. And so for 5.5 years, we've been on the air every second. So that's how Apex One Radio was born. And yes, along the years, people joined the project, and since then, we've been trying our best. So that is a summary of me.
Oh, wow, wow. And even the best that you're trying has really produced a lot of good and impact in Columbus. And I can also understand your itch after you said you left Cameroon and you came over and you were itching to practice journalism. I think journalism is just one of those profession that once it's in your blood, regardless of other career path
Right.
you choose to go into, you come back to it,
It's,
like
it's
someone
just
someone
like
like me.
journalism is
Yeah.
just like music. It's just like painting. It's just like writing. I know doctors whose passion is to write books, and they've been writing books. They can't depart from it. And I would have lost, a whole chunk of my life if I wasn't practicing journalism. Even if it's not for pay. It's just part of me. I just can't stay without it.
Yeah. That's how it is. So let's talk about fake news. Especially in this age where we have access to information rapidly. We are all aware of the impact of fake news in both local and global affairs,
Mhm.
especially the use of social media to spread disinformation about politics, about the pandemic, about celebrities. So, what are your thoughts on the proliferation or the massive spread of fake news?
The first thing I'm going to say is that it is important to understand what fake news is all about. From a layman's perspective, fake news is lies telling, news that is false, news that is misleading, news that is misguiding. Uh, Fake news is broader than that. A lot of scholars have been working on this concept, especially since 2017 or 2016, when the former president of the United States propagated fake news. So, fake news is getting beyond just lies telling. It is a lot of things. It is propaganda. It is rumor milling. But where I have interest in this concept of fake news is bias. Fake news is also bias. Bias means you are not reporting, you know, objectively. You may be using facts, but you are deliberately hurting someone you want to hurt, right? So, when the former president propagated fake news, a lot of people, especially his followers, cut this concept from the perspective of lies telling. And so CNN became a lies teller, MSNBC became a lies teller, New York Times became a lies teller, the Washington Post became a lies teller. But do these media outfits tell lies per se? I don't think so. These are the media outfits known to be agenda setters. Agenda setters are the media outfit that set the agenda. That is they make things move. They say things and it affects policymakers.
Policy.
They say things and policymakers are moved. Policymakers coined or designed policy based on this media outfit. And it's been like that for so many years. Now, for a president of the United States to come and rubbish this legacy by describing CNN, Washington Post, New York Times as lies telling outfit, it's very, very serious. And a lot of Americans don't even know how much damage this is causing to the United States. When I went to school, when I went to the journalism school, we were told that these media I just cited, including VOA, BBC, I mean the Western media that kind of put the Western world on top, agenda setters. There is no bigger thing. There is no bigger structure in the world that can flex muscles with these media organizations I've mentioned. But today they've all been rubbished, and they are known as lies tellers. Do they tell lies per se? They may have some reporting lapses. CNN has, occasionally come back to apologize for some stories they did not really verify. That is common. We all make mistakes, But then, as journalists, when we make mistakes, it's our responsibility to come back and make corrections. They call it in news jargon erratum.
Right. Yep.
And so you do that using the same platform which you use to
correct the error,
to send out that information which was not verified. And once that is done, you cannot be considered as a lies teller simply because you made a mistake. But again, I'm going to balance this up, Emmanuel, and I'm going to shock you by saying that Donald Trump, by describing this media outfit as fake news, was right to an extent. And I'm going to tell you why. He was right because this media outfit are biased. They are biased. It's common to watch a 2-hour news show on CNN talking against Donald Trump, for instance. It's very common to find Fox News, which is also a fake news outfit, if we want to go by Donald Trump's description of fake news, because Fox News is also biased. Fox News is on the right. It is pro-Trump. And so Fox News will go for 2 hours talking against the Democrats. So we see how the media is polarized. Whereas, do you know the position of the media? From the term media, what comes to your mind? Medium, middle. So the media has to stay in the middle. The media has to stay on the fence. The media have to be objective. They have to be balanced. But here comes America, which is supposed to be the model in journalism, having polarized news media. They describe them as media on the left, media on the right. It's not supposed to be that. It's not supposed to be like that. The media is the fourth estate, which means the media holds the other arms of government accountable. But here are we, the media has been held accountable and chastised for telling lies, which is wrong. But then, like I said, Trump was right because CNN is biased, and I don't know why. But Fox News is also biased, so Fox News is also part of the fake news media outfit. If we consider fake news as being biased, then this American media outfit, I mean, they
Yeah.
deserve the fake news appellation.
Yeah. Now let's move away from the traditional media houses like CNN, Fox News, and all that.
Mhm.
Fake news as it is now is not even just being propagated by mainstream media.
Right.
Now you have armchair freelance
Journalism.
journalists and writers.
Mhm.
I'm talking about intelligent people
Mhm.
who will weave together a fictitious story and
Yes.
start spreading it on social media that even an intelligent person, when you read it, you look at the type of language they use, they use professional language, good words, just to disinform people. So, and you see people forwarding all these things to themselves on WhatsApp, I'm
Mhm.
sure everyone has received one of those.
Sure.
Yeah. So, how do we as a society, decipher what is real and what is not?
Before I even answer that question, I would like to say it's rather unfortunate that not only freelance journalists, not only the ones we describe as armchair journalists, are doing this. We also have some media professionals who belong to the mainstream who divert to social media and are misbehaving. This is very incorrect. And that is why I tell folks who come across me that once you appear, or once you put yourself out there as a media professional, you need to mind what you do in any public sphere. You need to mind what you do. You need to mind what you publish. You have to be very careful because you have a name, you have an image, you have a brand to defend. So if you find Ernest Kanjo on Facebook behaving as citizen journalists, that is a very serious thing. Right. So, you know, I'm going to forgive citizen journalists. Citizen journalists are the ones who are not necessarily freelance journalists, who are not necessarily armchair journalists, but they are the ones who now own the place, who put stuff on social media, who make comments, and so on. Those ones, well, they are just socially interacting and catching fun. But for the armchair journalists who go on social media and propagate false news, it is really terrible. As a journalist, even if you are freelance, you need to master, not even master, but you need to be cognizant of the basic tenets of reporting. I'm going to list those tenets. The first thing is um, if something happens, if you are able to be there, they call it in news jargon, be there. If you're able to be there, go there. When you go there, you have a first hand experience of it, which means that you were there, you saw it, you heard it, so you can report it.
High witness.
Right. If you were not there, then you can use second hand information. And here you'll be dealing with eyewitnesses, right? So some people were there. Go there and ask them what happened. The first thing you need to do is to check the facts and cross check, which means if you talk to one eyewitness, talk to the next one, and even cross check with the next. So you talk to three people and make sure they are all saying almost the same thing. Then you are sure that that information has been verified
And
before you put
corroborated.
it out there. Yes. Um, if you don't do that and you write from a distance and just write anything, then you are certainly trying to uh, have people believe something which is not true uh, and hurting somebody in the process. It is very dangerous. Fake news is really dangerous. You and I know exactly what it has caused. It has damaged reputations. It has brought people down. It has damaged edifices people have built, for decades. So it is terrible. But that is also happening because information has become really cheap. We are living at an era where the cheapest thing to have is information. As cheap to an extent where everybody can even create content. Right. So
Yeah.
that's how
Yes.
serious it is.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Now let's talk about those who intentionally they know that the news is not, because actually we have fake news that are being spread deliberately. They know what the truth is, but because they want to set an agenda. And as it is, though, from what you said, a news in the United States is biased because the media has been weaponized to support maybe one side or the other.
Mhm.
So when you have this deliberate spread of fake news through social media, how can how can we look out to know, to be able to tell what is real and what is not? Because that's the problem that people are having. And that's why
Right.
you have a polarized world right now, a polarized United States when it comes to politics or even the pandemic.
Mhm.
Because the sources where people are getting their news determines what they believe.
Right.
There are some people that they are just locked into those fake news sources. That's where they
Mhm.
get all their conspiracy theories, even the updates on them.
Right. Fortunately, Emmanuel, there's been a lot of fake news and conspiracy theories going around to an extent where people are getting tired. People are now not easily falling for it. People are now believing that not everything they see or hear or read is true. So I like that consciousness. It was a matter of time for this consciousness to check in. We've had a lot of it. Fortunately, we've also had people fighting against fake news. There's been a lot of talk about conspiracy theories, and people are beginning to be conscientized and knowing that not everything they see on social media is true. Social media is even taking the very bad tack of a space where nothing should be believed. You understand? So that is helping to check this fake news. But there is a way to debunk fake news. Now, if you find a story published on Facebook or I don't know about someone that he said something, for instance, okay, how do you go about with it? Simply check if he's a public figure and he said something. If he did not say it in the private, he must have said it on camera. So Google, go to YouTube and check if he actually said it. You'll probably see somebody making a speech or making a statement, and that statement is twisted. So check the original form if it's still available. I know people play with content these days, manipulate content to suit what they want. But if you lay hands on the original content, why not just have the patience of listening to it in its entirety, or reading what whoever wrote, to get the facts of the story. The problem people have is, once they get the headlines, once they get the catchy headlines, that's it. They don't go further. They don't dig further to find out if it's true. Uh, People use headlines to sell, just like even mainstream media do that. Newspapers and magazines use catchy headlines to sell. So, what is behind those stories? In most cases, the stories are empty. They use the headlines to sell. But you, who is the consumer, take some time, be patient enough to dig and verify before believing whatsoever you are reading. And like I said, it's easy. Information is easy to come by. People are just lazy, and since negative news sells more, well, people stay at that point. But like I said, the good news is that people are getting fed up. There's a lot about fake news going out there. So each time they see something, they would want to know exactly what is going on before they believe. Even go to Facebook and read some comments. There are people who come and they just debunk and say, no, we don't believe this. These are lies. And some would even bring the truer version of such information and place under the comment section to contradict. which is, I mean, to me, like I said, which is good news.
Yes. Someone just wrote, just check before you post, verify before you post, because Facebook itself is a media in itself. And just like you said, if one, sometimes when you see a report, just Google it. What's funny is that you might even see a news report debunking that fake information.
Right.
But a lot of people may not do that. The next thing, the moment they got it, even some of them may not even read the content. They
Mhm.
forward it on their WhatsApp, share it on their Facebook page.
Right.
And all this is because we have easier access to information,
Right.
access that we don't even have maybe 8, 10 years ago. Because
Right.
now, because of the growth of social media and smartphones and technologies, information can be disseminated quickly, faster, and to anybody
Right.
who otherwise maybe 8, 10 years ago may not have it. Now, how do you see these technological developments? Do you see them as a blessing, or do you see them as curses, or it's mixed in
It's a,
relation to news reporting and dissemination of misinformation?
it's a two-way thing. It's a two-way thing. It's a blessing and it's a curse. And I'm going to tell you why. A blessing because when you study the science of communication, and you study the communication process, which begins with creating the idea which you want to communicate, and getting to a point where that idea gets to the receiver, passing through a channel. When it gets to the receiver, what happens? There is what we call feedback.
Feedback.
Feedback. If feedback doesn't occur, then the process of communication has not been complete.
And yes.
Right. So feedback has to occur. This never used to happen in the past. So this is what happened in the past. The mainstream media gave us the information, right? But we didn't have the means to respond. All we had to do was to consume and accept what we got from the mainstream media. If you watch TV news, for instance, there wasn't any means you could make a remark or you could feedback to whoever was giving that information to you, and this created the impression that whatever thing was coming from the media was gospel truth. Nobody could argue what was coming from the media, and even the faces on television, the voices on radio were demigods. These were extraterrestrial human beings, not like you and I. We consider these people as some demigods, some people who were telling the truth and nothing else but the truth, some people who shaped our lives. There wasn't any way we could respond to what we're getting from them. But with the advent of new information and communication technologies, this is no longer the case. We now have the opportunity to react to whatever news we get. So, if I'm watching Emmanuel on the news, I am commenting at the same time. And if Emmanuel says something I don't believe, I simply say, you are wrong. Or I simply say, yes, you are reading this news story the way you're doing simply because you are supporting the Democrats or you're supporting the Republicans. And I'm able to tell you that. I'm able to even rubbish what you are doing. So I also have a voice. So in this case, we have the audience that can react, the audience that can also participate in the communication process. So that is a blessing. So at this point, the communication process is completed, where we have communication and feedback. So that is a blessing, and this is thanks to the new information technologies. Also, we are able to be exposed to everything that is happening. Exposure is far higher than it used to happen in the past. A lot of things happen in the past. Governments could hide things, right? Governments could do terrible things and go away with it. Governments could oppress their people and go away with it because they controlled the media, especially in less developed countries. Africa, particularly, when the audiovisual sector had not been liberalized in Africa, governments had control over television and radio. These are sensitive communication tools. So government controlled it. So they controlled what they wanted you to, they actually coined what they wanted you to consume. The people had no say.
They
But
control
today,
the you get.
right, but today, the people have a say on social media. The people don't only have a say on social media, but they control it. They actually control the landscape. The people control. Governments are now running behind the people. Right. So that is a blessing. The new information and communication technologies have come to boost democracy. That is the fact. Democracy is at its best. If democracy has to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people, then this is the time it's happening at its best. So that is a blessing. It is also a curse, and a big one, of course, because it has come with all the negative things you can think about. Social media has brought down edifices erected for so many years, simply because people are misbehaving on this on it. Um, Social media and the new information and communication technologies were not meant to 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 introduce a war into the world, right? But today we're talking about maybe a third world war, which will happen on 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 social media space, which will happen on the internet. And truly, it is happening because we see. I mean, look at what is going on. Look at what America experienced within the last 12 months. I think this has been one of the most darkest, or one of the darkest episodes in American democracy. And a lot of it happened on social media. We saw a former president of the country who used social media to do what he did. I mean, even resulting to the physical attack of the people who make laws in a country which is known as an El Dorado of the rule of law.
Yeah, I think we are having some technical difficulty as
That
Ernest has frozen
is,
up.
I guess I'm back.
Oh yeah, welcome back.
Right. And so
Yeah, welcome
social
back.
media has been a curse. Just talking about fake news, which is your topic. I mean, it's been propelled by social media and the new communication and information technologies. So in
Yes.
that score, I see it as a curse. But on the other hand, like I said, we are able to interact more, especially with the governments that rule us. So that is a blessing.
Thank you. Yeah, social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and others, Instagram, have become very powerful when it comes to spreading and controlling information. In fact, they are as powerful up to the point where they had to silence the president of the United States.
Mhm.
And it was permanent, and they were able to do it. And that also affected policy, government. It actually affected what was going on. What are your thoughts on the fact that a social media company, as they have amassed such power in so short a time?
Look, Emmanuel, it was just a matter of time for this to happen. And I think we cannot eat our cake and have it, which means that we cannot accept technology which we enjoy. You and I are able to communicate from afar, and do that so wonderfully thanks to technology. So, as we embrace technology, as we enjoy it, we also have to embrace what comes along with technology. So it was just a matter of time for this technology to take over the world. And as we speak, it is ruling the world. It is a nice thing, Emmanuel. I'm going to take you back to Africa. Uh, in 2010, there was a wind of change across Africa where young people use social media to kick out despots and dictatorial regimes. We had presidents including Mubarak of Egypt, Ali Ben of Tunisia,
Mhm.
lots, others, including Compaore of Burkina Faso, and many more,
Arab
who,
Spring.
right, who had been in power for forever, eternally, who did not want to leave power. It took young people, with the use and the help of social media, to kick these dictators out. Scores of them are still in power, not wanting to leave, but it's just a matter of time. They too will be out. So yes, these tech companies have naturally become powerful because they have the support of the people. The people consume consume. Let me put it this way: consume their products. The people consume their products, and it is just what it is. Twitter has millions of subscribers. Facebook millions. YouTube as well. If you have control of the people, if you have the people, naturally you have the power. These tech companies have the people, including those who are victims of tech, of technology. Donald Trump used technology to boost his image. I mean, Donald Trump even became more popular thanks to Twitter, which he used. He became a victim of technology, but that is just what it is. So it was just a matter of time for technology to take over the world. And like I said, it is a wonderful thing because it is helping to curtail the powers of governments over their people. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So it's a kind of leveler. So in a way too, it creates this kind of artificial parity between the powerful and the powerless.
Right.
For instance, now the president of the United States can post something.
Mhm.
Someone that may never be in his or our orbit can respond to it.
Of course.
So there is that artificial parity, even though they are not on the same level. But when it
Right.
comes to social media, you can interact with people that you in real life you might not even be in the same
Right.
room.
And most interestingly, we've also had some of these people kickback. Like when people respond to them, uh, they too respond. And
Mhm.
I mean, I've come across such high level profile individuals who have had, a debacle on Facebook with the citizens. That could not happen in the past because you could not even have access to these people. These are people who, are, in some places, they are chauffeur driven. Some of them have
Yeah.
bodyguards. You cannot have physical access to them. But on social media, I mean, you can tell them your mind. And we are still not there. A lot of this is yet to come. A lot of this is yet to come, and we are going to get to a point where there will be no difference between the citizen and I mean the people up there. So that ground is gradually being leveled, and it's just a nice thing.
Yes. Celebrities can also become victims of this. You see, celebrities they will post something about
Right.
some of the people who are their fans or not their fans who go there, post something negative, bullying and all that. Now let's talk about YouTube.
Mhm.
YouTube is a very fertile ground for misinformation and
Right.
propaganda, and the reason is because people tend to believe in videos or
Right.
visuals
Mhm.
because if I can see it, if I can hear it, I can believe it, and
Right.
because of that, a lot of people who propagate fake news or misinformation they use these medium videos to convince people. You
Right.
see people with unverifiable degrees calling with charisma making these good videos well spoken,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to politics and the pandemic. They've
Mhm.
used these people have really been able to target people. So my question is, what are the responsibilities of medium like YouTube to curb some of this misinformation that is being used on their platform to spread all the disinformation, which actually kills people.
Right. Now, formerly it was difficult to check unruly behavior on these platforms, including YouTube. But of late, YouTube has really been very careful with that. YouTube has been very concerned. That is why you have a lot of copyright issues coming up. Also, there's a possibility of a YouTuber or someone who uh, presents YouTube content to get reported to YouTube when they misbehave, and YouTube can suspend them. They've been doing that, or they give you the possibility of bringing down the video, of deleting the video, which was problematic, without which you can even be banned, from that platform. This is because it's really been rampant. People have used YouTube to fight battles. They've used YouTube to attack their enemies. But like I said, YouTube is beginning to be very conscious of this because people have complained. Um, this cannot be eradicated so easily because a lot of unlawful things, very unholy things, still happen on YouTube.
We lost Ernest again because of technical difficulties. We hope he's going to be back soon so that we can continue this discussion about fake news in the information age. Thank you for staying tuned to Legal Angle with Emmanuel de la Olawale. If you are just joining us, we've been talking about fake news in the information age, how to recognize fake news, how to stop the dissemination of fake news, and the responsibilities of journalists and media companies in handling fake news or to stop the dissemination of misinformation. But my guest is having technical difficulty right now, as it seems that his videos is buffering. Uh, we lost him. Hopefully, if he joins us within the next few minutes, we can continue with our discussion on fake news in the information age. So far, we've talked about how the news media can be biased, how it seems that every media company have their own agenda. So when it comes to listening to news from CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News, you're going to get one part of their agenda or not. I think Ernest is back, so I'm going to let him back so that we can continue the discussion. So welcome back, Ernest. We
Yeah.
lost you for a few minutes there.
Mhm. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, we're talking about YouTube and what that platform could do to curb, if not
Yes.
reduce, the rate of unruly behavior on it. And like I said, YouTube is taking cognizance of that. People are getting suspended on YouTube. Videos are getting deleted, on YouTube. But much of this unruly behavior still happens, and we've seen people manipulate videos. We have very smart people these days who are able to turn red into yellow and show you, and you believe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, those
But
are called deepfakes.
so yes, like I said, YouTube is doing something in that
Something about it.
direction, but we hope
Okay.
it's going to do more.
We hope so too. There was a quantitative research that was done last year, during the campaign, I mean, to measure how fast fake and real news spread.
Right.
It was discovered that fake news spread and conspiracy theory, they spread faster. They were shared more times on social media, they had more views, and they spread faster on Twitter, Facebook than real news.
Mhm.
What do you think is responsible for this? Is it that are people much more gullible, or is it that fake news are more juicy?
Um, The first thing is fake news. Fake news are more juicy, like you said. Nobody bothers about reporting something positive and and wanting it to go viral. It won't go viral. Negative news sells. So the very fact that fake news is always negative kinds of help it spread more. That is what people love to watch or to listen to or to consume. It is natural, and that is also what society has been made to believe, that negative news sells more. On the other hand, people are gullible. Yes, people have become really gullible, that they easily hit to fake news than to news that is verified. Then, like I mentioned earlier on the show, people are just lazy. They don't want to take time to verify information before believing it. So it also comes from the fact that there is so much out there. People don't have time to go verifying every information they get. If they have to do so, then at the end of the day, they will have to spend long hours only verifying the chunk of information that is coming in before believing it. So they don't have that time. They just believe what they get. Lastly, those who propagate fake news uh, do a lot of work. They don't sleep. They make sure that it spreads. So they share, encourage others to do so, and they are very strategic as well. They put it where they know a lot of people will consume. Right. So it's just like you go on Fox News on Facebook, for instance. Each information Fox publishes or posts on Facebook, you have thousands of people reacting seconds after it is put up. So people who propagate fake news, spend their life under such platforms. They go there and they help in spreading the news further.
Yes, right. Someone just made a comment that technology has developed faster than our brains. If we are to look at it from an evolutionary perspective, we are far behind in terms of development when compared to the technologies that we use. It's true. It's like we're always trying to play catch up.
Right.
And now, propaganda, I know you talked about propaganda before. Being a student of the media, of journalism,
Mhm.
we know that propaganda has always been a tool government used to control news,
Right.
policy, current and historical narratives.
Mhm.
But with the advent of social media and the proliferation of fake news, even the government have lost some grounds to control the narrative because you have propaganda being used as a tool, even to either to destroy a government
Mhm.
or to make them a government with disrepute.
Mhm.
So, what is the role of government in trying to control misinformation when they're not the ones spreading the propaganda?
Formerly, governments had control over information. It was easier for governments to do so because the people didn't just have the platform to express themselves. Government alone ran the platform. It is very difficult today because who are you dealing with? Who are the people? Who are the citizen journalists we're talking about? What about fake profiles? There are millions of people who are not using their names. So who are you going to trap? Where do they live? You see people on social media. You don't even know their geographical location. You don't even know where they are writing. And what if you kill a fake profile? Another fake profile props up in the next second. So people are able to manipulate this tool. And for some reason, the people understand social media and new technologies even more than the government. I'll give you an example of a typical African government made up of ministers who are all in their 60s, maybe members of parliament who are all in their 60s, older people who are not tech savvy. They don't
Exactly.
know technology, they don't even use it, right? They don't know how to manipulate smartphones. So these tools are in the hands of young people, those people who are oppressed. And so the only way they can fight back is to use the tool and dismantle the government. So government has no control. I mean, government has no control. Go ahead and craft laws to track people on social media. It's not going to work. You will try your best, but it's not going to work. It can only work if you are able to identify these people. Right. But if you cannot identify them, it's not going to work. And how are you going to spread the message? How are you going to make these rules and regulations or laws work? Are you going to use the same social media to communicate this
To combat them? Yeah.
right? This
Yeah.
social media controlled by the same people. Um, it's now common to see government communiques or uh, uh, government documents
Communications.
circulated on social media.
Correct.
I see presidents announcing official making official announcements on social media today. Do you know what that means? In as much as it is it is what should happen now because if you are not on
Because
social
of
media,
where we are technologically, yes.
right? In as much as it is the way it also comes with a price. Now, take for instance, uh, a member of government, a minister, or even the president puts an official announcement duly signed by him on his Facebook page. Some Facebook user retrieves it, right, and messes it up, do some photo shopping,
Photoshop.
right, and and place it back. That do you know what that can cause?
It can
So
cause war. It
at
can
the
lead to
end of
war.
at the end of the day, it is the people who control the
Social
sphere,
media.
not the
Yes.
governments. So the governments can do very little to control what is happening on social media.
Yeah. Guess that is the guardrail that the government can put in place to make sure that their own new news tool is not being used against them. In a minute or two, I would like you to tell us what are those things you put in place to avoid the spread of fake information on Apex News.
Beautiful. The first thing I do is that I I kind of take a very balanced and unbiased posture. And I do this by reporting and not commenting. I'm going to shock you by telling you this, and it's important for your listeners to know, Emmanuel, before we leave. Journalists don't own an opinion. Take it again. Journalists don't own an opinion. Journalists are called upon to report. So go out there, see what you've seen, hear what you've heard, come and report it the way you saw it and heard it. And don't make comments, don't make remarks, don't inject your comments into your reports. Because if you do that, then you'll be bound to be biased. So journalists don't own an opinion. Let the people make the comments. Let the people own the opinion, not journalists. It's not because you have a microphone or you have access to the pen that you're going to let your opinion spill out. It is dangerous if the journalist has to own an opinion because they would use their opinion and impose it. Also, journalists don't belong to social groups. Journalists should not belong to associations. They do, but it is wrong. I was taught in school that journalists don't have to belong to any social group. Do you know why? Let me take an example. Let's say Emmanuel is a journalist who belongs to the Association of Yoruba Sons and Daughters of Ohio, right? Now, that association is involved in a scandal. The president of that association is involved in a scandal. And you are assigned to investigate that story. That guy is your president, the president of your cultural group or something. Emmanuel, tell me, how are you going to handle that story? Are you going to be balanced? Are you going to be objective? It's going to be difficult, right? So that is why scholars say journalists should not belong to these groups so that they stay balanced. On Apex 180, we try to be balanced. We try to report and make very little comments. We can only make comments when we are editorializing. An editorial is the opinion of the newsroom on a given topic. That is only the only time journalists own an opinion is when they are doing an editorial for a news magazine. So they sit in their newsroom or a news conference and talk about a particular topic and say, okay, the editor-in-chief is going to write us an editorial to express our newsroom's opinion on this. And that opinion is always based on facts, verifiable facts. You don't just give out the opinion without using facts. So that's what we do on Apex One Radio. Then whatever information that is not verified or verifiable, we don't put it on the airwaves. Lastly, we have the tendency of going out there, sending our reporter out there and having him report live on the news or other shows so that he's reporting what he's seen, not what he's just hearing or imagining. So we try to do that. But fortunately, I am a professional who knows a lot about news ethics, news values, and I try to manage that just to make sure we are unbiased.
Thank you. Thank you, Ernest, for coming on to Legal Angle. I really appreciate your time. And if you want to reach Ernest, you can reach him at 614-500-1232. You can also visit apex1radio.com, apex1radio.com. Thank you again, Ernest, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for having me. It was a wonderful pleasure, and I will always be available anytime you need me for more of this. Don't hesitate to knock at my door. It will be wide open for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for those of you watching at home or listening to the podcast, we thank you for joining us. And until next time, stay safe.
Bye.